or without any kind of lead up, so that there's not any extra enthusiasm.
Okay.
Now, I was asked to kind of step away while they started the RV this week, and I did that. And so I'm allowed to pretty much say whatever I want now because it's already happened. So
I know.
And they're going through the segment.
Well.
Yeah, and I checked on those reports, Dr. WC. I've got a little bit more on that. So
Okay.
But some of this stuff, folks, just know old Yosef is. I don't think I've lost my mind quite yet, but I did get some questions answered on some of the more bizarre topics tonight. So, and the way I get information is I exchange banking information with some of the intelligence people that have currency and want to know what's going on with the banking. So that's the relationship that I have. I give them, financial advice, and they give me geopolitical, military, republic, space, everything. They don't always give it to me straight. Sometimes they lead me to it. Most of the times they lead me to it, but ultimately we get to the same kind of conclusion, and they help me arrive at it. So they were very generous tonight because the RV has already started. Now, that being the case, show me, are you on the call? Show me.
Hey, I'm right here.
He's here.
I'm here,
yes,
right
he's
here.
So just because I'm driving. By the way, full moon starts tomorrow at I think like 1:30 in the afternoon. It's a weird time, but there's meaning to that. Just so you know, first full moon of the summer, but. I'm going to have Show Me read the sit rep just because I'm driving, and then I'll just comment.
You want me to read
particular line?
You want me to? Yeah, okay. Read one line and then you comment on it, and then read.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I will do that.
Is that okay?
Perfect.
Right.
So
the title of the. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Just read off the title so people know it's coming.
In plain sight.
In plain sight. I think we can all theorize what that is. All right, go for it.
Okay, the UN erased all sovereign debt on Zimbabwe last week, who immediately erased all national bank debt this last Sunday night.
Right, so President Mugabe is like 94 years old, give or take. I think he's actually older than that, a lot older, believe it or not. But he goes to Singapore every month to get stem cell so he can stay alive to see the RV. Imagine that. We're all trying to stay alive in our homes and our families, and he's literally trying to stay alive to see the RV. But he flew to New York and basically signed off on the African Union's continental assets as its kind of honorary chair. He no longer is the president of the union. He was, but he basically is the kind of leader of the African continent for good reason. Even though he's been barbaric in holding on to power in Zimbabwe, he still was the guy that basically fought back the Eastern European cabal leadership to regain the continent for the African race, for the black race. So the honor was for him to sign off the African Union assets. We'll get into a little bit of how that plays out long term, but in the short term, this was what was needed to release Zimbabwe of all of its sovereign debt and restore its currency back as an international currency. So that happened this past week, and when he came back to Africa, interestingly enough, technically he was no longer the president. He also resigned and gave his leadership position of running Zimbabwe to someone that served with him in the wars in the late 70s through the early 80s of getting the land back, a guy named Emerson Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa. I think I've got it pronounced right. Anyway, he was Russian trained, believe it or not, and in the military, and so there's a real good relationship between the BRICS countries. And acting president, they call him Mnangagwa. So, and this was needed, by the way, for JASARA compliance for Zimbabwe, just like the United States has to transfer its leadership, like you're seeing with Trump now. So too did Zimbabwe, and Mugabe had to go, which is ironic because he held on to see it through, and now he has the lead. So, anyway, next point.
Okay, next point is, because all their international sanctions were removed at UN last week, which included WB, IMF, ADB, debt claims.
So, because the default of the World Bank, the IMF, the African Development Bank, there were still legal claims that had to be worked through. And even though they were worked through months ago, legally, there still had to be a reconciliation that Zimbabwe agreed to. And that's what was done at the UN. It was basically a reconciliation of all world debt, but also an implementation of all world assets into the new financial system. So it was a dual thing, and like I said, the Zimbabwe currency is again international.
Okay, next one.
Next one. Yep.
In return, Mugabe signed off on the African Union's Group of Nations Natural Assets for Global Trade Platform Collateral.
Okay, so we know that Africa's just overflowing with natural resources, and it's not only the future of the world through its minerals and through the products that can be made from that, and the technology that can be implemented because of those minerals. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's playing with my phone. All right, I'm going to call back in, okay?
There, Doc.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, we're getting an echo from somewhere.
I know. I can't locate it. Might be one of the listeners have their line open.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Joseph.
Okay. So sometimes they play with my phones a little bit, guys. Sorry about that. So I just put the blood of Christ on it. I was hearing a dramatic echo all of a sudden.
Yeah, we heard it.
Okay. And it's pretty standard, for national security and all that stuff. But I've got some clearances that if they check on it, they'll see that I'm okay.
Speak up, please.
I'm approved in heaven. How about that? Got my clearance in Christ.
A little louder.
Can you hear me? You hear me okay?
That's better.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so we were going to talk about the trade platforms, which is probably why they zapped me. So trade platforms, a lot of people have heard about them. They're actually called private placement programs. What they basically are built-in arbitrage to the financial system. So whenever money is literally created out of thin air, it goes through a series of trades. Those trades have arbitrages that are built in. So it might come onto the market at, say, 30% of its value, and then it's traded at 35, and then 40, and 45, and 50, and all the way up to 99, I think, 0.999% or some crazy number, or at least it was. And it's a way to generate money automatically without having to really do any work. But it was really intended at the Bretton Woods Conference to rebuild the world. And it was a good, in theory, it's like derivatives, where there's a portion of derivatives that are actually pretty good for minimizing risk, but there's like the trade platforms, it was a good concept that got abused terribly. It's one of the reasons they just repealed Dodd-Frank, interestingly enough, in the House of Representatives today. But the point is that the trade platforms were to fund the world and fund the reconstruction of the world after the First and Second World Wars. They ended up getting, hijacked by the cabal and used for really devilish black budget type purposes. But ultimately the theory was good, and so the Chinese have reinstituted that theory with greater oversight, with absolute oversight actually, and tremendously stiff penalties for anybody that attempts to usurp the benevolent design of the trade platforms. Now, it's my understanding that Mugabe agreed to place African assets up as collateral for the trade platforms in return for profit, percentage of every trade going back into the redevelopment, rebuild, reconstruction, growth of Africa as a continent. And that's why it was a big deal at the UN that he was there and signed off on that. So every time there's a trade in the United States or Canada or Latin America, in essence, Africa benefits. And so that's kind of what is collateralizing the trading platforms, which, by the way, when you make a trade like that, it's 100% reconciliation at the end of the day, and it's in raw assets too. It's not in any kind of paper. So if you trade something, you have to have full value for it in above ground assets. So anyway, I don't want to get too deep into the concepts, but that was kind of how I got into the sovereign markets was through private placements and attempting to rebuild cities and through trade, and I just fell into the currencies. And so I know a lot more about trade than I do actually, or I know a lot more about currencies now, unfortunately. But the African assets, in essence, are participating in every trade now globally. So everybody that's getting humanitarian, monies are actually helping Africa, which is kind of cool, and the way it should be, because they're the poorest continent, at least in terms of the modern technologies and amenities in the world. So very cool stuff. And Mugabe, was held on all the way until the end, until the mid-'90s, to accomplish that. And, will go down as, the liberator of the African continent, even though he's portrayed as the great, heathen or the great, dictator, that has destroyed so many lives and abused so many to maintain his power. That's kind of the reason he did that. So I don't know that his methods were always so great, but the reality was he was trying to hold on to power for the entire continent and was always basically in war with some sort of Anglo-Saxon or Western world type of, covert black ops to bring him down. So China helped him, Russia helped him, and now he's allowing the African assets to help the world through these trade platforms. Next one, show me.
Okay, of which each country gets a health portion of each trade for the rebuilding of the entire African continent.
Right, which is what kind of we just went over. So
okay,
let's go to the next one.
The Zim currency was immediately reconciled and made internationally recognized.
So Zim currency is in central banks all over the world. It's been traded. You've heard about the rates and everything from Bruce and different people, me. And all of that's true. But the irony is it's really low right now, even though it's above $8. The reason I say that it's low is because the net value of it will be skyrocketing into triple digits. But the pace at which they bring up the Zim is important, because all these groups that submitted Zim or have the Admirals group that intook Zim, they did it at such a low rate that ultimately they can absorb all the cost of redeeming all that currency. Because of the trade arbitrages, they'll actually make money on every Zim note they take in. They'll make an enormous sum of money net. I know that's hard for people to believe given the face values are so high and the rates we've talked about, but when you understand just how much is in the ground and waiting and has been audited through geological audits, you come to the understanding that it's an infinite amount of money in terms of our lifetime and generations beyond us. So that being the case, they're going to be able to handle all the negative that they take on the books with currency exchange, and through the private placement programs, they're going to be able to not only spend that debt and turn it into profit, but they're going to be able to hold it and then sell it back to the central banks and governments of the world at a much higher rate for their own holding and keeping, and basically double dip in terms of profit. So, and the cool thing about it is Africa, all they have to do is basically sign off on it as collateral, and the Chinese handle the entire system, so they technically don't even spend their wealth. They just use it as collateral in order to participate in the transaction. It's no different than somebody, guaranteeing your home loan, even though you're paying the mortgage and you've done the downstroke. Somebody basically doing a collateralization of your loan so that you qualify to get that size, loan. And so that's basically what the African continent is doing, and the leader of that continent is Mugabe. Interesting stuff, huh? Hello?
Very much so. Okay, next one.
Okay,
Yosef?
next one. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Expect to see initial screen rates for Zim at or above $8 USD. This rate will soar past global announcement of the GCR.
Yeah, I don't advise anybody waiting to hold the Zim and hold it in their home. I don't. Obviously the numbers and the rates are so bizarrely fantastic that it's idiotic to hold on to it. It's actually very dangerous. We're going to get into a little bit of the fact that the military is not getting much more involved in the Zim late, but for that reason. So just, take what you get. You don't need to take the full rate. You can take whatever you're comfortable with. I've said that on numerous occasions. But I always felt that just as a human being on the earth, you not only deserve to know the truth of the Zim and its true value and the true value of the African continent, but you deserve to know all truth. You deserve to know your origins. You deserve to know what your food is made out of. You deserve to know the dimensional plane of the earth and the shape of that. You deserve to know about quantum and physics and how you're affected by that, and your education, your media, your entertainment, the vibrational frequency of what a human being should be at with where we're at. I mean, I believe you deserve to know it all. I've been hard on people that haven't shared it all, that have greater knowledge. I know they feel doing the right thing by holding it back, but it's my understanding in this era of light that the transparency aspect of that transparency is available to anyone that desires to know. And I just got to believe the 500 or so people that are on this call have a desire to know. I mean, that, right, Dr. WC? That's why we're all here. We share the same desire. Yes, no, maybe?
That's correct.
Yes,
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Okay. We just want to know.
I'm muting myself so you guys can work.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, show me. Next one.
Okay, and by soar, we mean well into the triple digits on screen.
Yeah, that's why when we talk about, $125,000 Zim sovereign rates, what we're really saying is, that's a small portion of what the screen rate will reveal. So don't feel bashful if it's that high or you ask for a bigger number. I mean, they can cover it. I've just explained the trading platforms and the theory behind it. They can cover any negative that they take on with your exchange. The deeper question is how much really should you take given your covenant with God? And for some people, that could be something as simple as $10 million, even though their capacity might be, an octillion, given the sovereign rates and how much currency they hold. So it's not so much the amount that you're going to receive, it's trying to be in alignment with your God covenant, whatever the number is. And you'll know when you're in there as long as you surrender and pray to your higher power and ask to be shown and given what you're supposed to get versus what you theoretically could get. I like people to know. I'd want to know. I'm not going to ask for $125,000. I don't need it. That's not my God covenant. And when I get in there, I could change too. I'm open to that. It could be higher. It could be lower. I don't know. But I know this. I'm going to pray and I'm going to surrender and I'm going to let my higher power take over, and I'll get exactly what I'm supposed to get. Exactly. And there'll be some people in this audience that'll get more than me. And I'm happy for them because that'll be their God covenant. But I will tell you this, I won't take a nickel more than I'm supposed to take in terms of what feels right to me. And I won't take a nickel less because I have deep responsibilities to the human race to set it right again. I think we all do. That's why we're all, staying up on a Thursday night listening to silly Yosef. So, just again, I always lead with surrender. I've tried to always lead with that in Christ, and I've always tried to lead with God, and it's annoyed people, and they don't like the preaching of it. But I think it's actually your best mechanism for protection of your soul, which when you have infinite wealth, you quickly realize that your soul is the true value. It's not the zeros and the numbers and the digits and the stuff you can buy. It's the fact that you have an eternal spark in a temporary body with this infinite wealth of oxygen and air and water and sea and tree and foliage and food and minerals. I mean, we just have so much blessing around us. We can't even fathom how much blessing we have. And yet the greatest blessing is the fact that we are eternally connected to an oversoul that is a creative oversoul, the Father God. However you want to explain it, talk about it. And the concept of Christ is basically the vehicle for the crystallization of that truth in your earthly experience to understand your relationship and your covenant in heaven. Christ is a bridge. And by surrendering and coming into that bridge, you in essence, become one again with God. And thus you can act and think and do as Christ did, because Christ was acting in perfect harmony with God. He knew no separation. I mean, they ultimately crucified him for it, but he allowed that so that we could take the example and be fearless to see that he transcended death because of the eternal life, the eternal connection he has to a grand creator. Anyway, I'm getting off the SIP rep, but that's how I understand things, right or wrong.
Okay, next one, Joseph.
Yeah. Yep.
As a result, the U.S. Zim governments magically have re-engaged full diplomatic contact as of this Monday.
Yeah, the U.S. magically shows up in Zimbabwe and says, hey, sorry about the last 37 years, Come on, let's do this over. Let's have a do-over. We can do business. But really, that's the Republic going in and reestablishing diplomatic contact, which is pretty cool. I think the diplomat's name is O'Connell that's there. She's a woman from the U.S. I think O'Connell.
Next one. U.S. diplomat even traveled to Zimbabwe to meet new acting president Emerson
Mnangagwa.
Yeah.
Mnangagwa.
Yeah, thank you.
Mnangagwa.
Mnangagwa.
Kind of spelled funny. Mnangagwa. Mnangagwa. Anyway, he's very well trained, very established. They call him the crocodile because he's brutally harsh too. And he fought with Mugabe in the land wars in the late 70s, early 80s. And I think he was actually imprisoned with Mugabe. Mugabe was in jail for 10 years. He was the real, the story of, what's the South African leader that is so praised? I can't even think of it. Anyways, he's recently passed. and everybody went to his funeral. Well, he was cabal, and the actual hero of the African continent was Mugabe, and not. What can I think of his name? Blanking. It's pathetic. Anyway, my thought adjusters must be turning me off of it. Anyway, so just understand that Zimbabwe basically led the way for the black race to regain its dignity, and that's why Mugabe has been given the honor of releasing the African continent for its new era of existence. Next one.
Was it Mandela that you were talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Nelson Mandela. Right.
Yeah.
Who was imprisoned? Yeah, but they cloned him, or they swapped him out, and then with a different guy, and then they cloned him many times. So.
Okay. Look around 1 a.m. Eastern for results to post on UK elections.
So it's a big day today, not just because of the Comey testimony, which I'm going to call a 7 out of 10 in terms of its effectiveness, but I get that they're still priming the pump for a little bit later in the month. But the British snap elections that Theresa May just suddenly decided, you know what, I'm prime minister until 2018, but I'm going to just do a snap election for prime minister, and I'm going to run again. And then that way I'll be prime minister until 2020, and that'll help in the Brexit negotiations because I'll be a longer-term leader and have more clout. So that's why she launched the snap election in terms of how it looks politically. The reality is those that run Britain wanted to wait until the last possible second before they had to get Gisara compliant, just in case the cabal made a comeback and was able to overcome the elders. And so they dragged it out to the last possible second, and it was June 8th was the last possible second, and we're living in it, and they're going to get that result at 1 a.m., and May's going to win by, 16 to 18 points or something like that. And that will make the UK Gisara compliant in terms of replacing their government, but it will also create harmony within the UN Security Council with the permanent vote. There are 5 countries that have a permanent vote in the UN Security Council. That's Russia, China, it's France, it's the United States, and Great Britain. So the last election of those 5 was the Great Britain election, not the French election. And so they could have done their election at any time, but they chose to wait to the last possible second before they knew that there was no way the cabal was going to come back, which is kind of shady business, but it's also the way a lot of business people negotiate. They don't do anything until it's the last possible second, and even then they pull out and ask for sweeteners and all that stuff. So. They just don't quit. They don't quit until they're just destroyed or eliminated or wiped off the face of the earth, which there were a lot of ghost operations going on militarily here in the last 3 days. That's why they wanted me to stay off the airwaves and not post anything. There was a lot of cleanup going on. And when I mean cleanup, I mean assassination teams running around the world taking out people that refuse to move forward. Good time.
Well,
good
the
time.
scripture says choose life. So they don't choose life, guess what? They go.
Yes, that is correct. If they choose death, they choose death. I mean, that's kind of the choice, right?
That's what it says. I said before you, life and death. You choose. Then it says choose life so that you and your children can prosper. So they're not choosing life, so it's on them.
Yeah.
People don't think that people don't think that scripture is literally life and death, but it's been executed right now. It's literally life or death.
God or not God.
That's right.
Life or death. Love or fear. Yep. I just find it interesting you were muted the whole call until we started talking about ghost teams assassinating bad guys, and you started chiming in. That's all.
Roll them, roll them out. Roll them out of here. We ready to move. We ready to make things happen. Get the clouds out of the way. We ready to make it happen. I'm muted again. Bye.
Goodbye. Go ahead, Chum.
Okay, so I'll just read that with this one, and I'll continue on. Prime Minister Theresa May expected to win by 16 to 18% margin, which is a landslide. And then that's the last Jassara election needed to complete compliance for all UNSC votes: Russia, China, U.S., UK, and France.
Ta-da!
Okay, and then GB waited until last second in case the cabal made a comeback.
GB being Great Britain.
Yeah. Military is changing redemption strategy.
Yeah, I can't talk too much on this one. The military is changing the redemption strategy. It's my understanding here at the last second. I don't know all the details of that, so don't come knocking on my door. I just know that they're going to switch some things around here at the end. No different than any military operation where you get your, you train for a mission, and then at the very last second it changes. They just want to create some secrecy around what they're doing. And I don't think the enemy didn't anticipate there would be changes at the end. I just am sharing with the audience that those changes are being implemented.
Okay, next one, Yosef.
Yes, please.
All Zim holders will registered as sovereign diplomats.
Aha, this is one of the changes. Yeah. It's not really a change. It's more of a procedural. So, guys, you're going into, and I'm talking to Zim holders, so I'm assuming everybody in this call is probably a Zim holder. You're going into a world of exponential wealth, of unlimited possibility. And if you're a sovereign family member, you've always had access to these private placement mechanisms. That's what the sovereign families set up. So thus they have access. And you now, by definition of your wealth and the new order of things, this is why they're calling you the chosen ones, because you in essence become sovereign families. And so your accounts, when you redeem your Zim, are not just regular checking and savings accounts or trust accounts that are held off ledger. They're sovereign accounts. And with sovereign accounting comes sovereign compliance, and they will be much more scrutinous of your actions and your spending than they would have been in a normal DND or IQD or Afghani redemption because of the just sheer scope. I mean, you can, on your own, start a war if you wanted to. So to eliminate that, they have to have greater oversight, but they also have to be able to manage that money, and the only way they can manage the money is on these sovereign trade platforms. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah, you'll have a diplomatic tag to your accounts, but you probably won't even notice it, honestly. But if you do choose to do international, humanitarian work, you'll be able to qualify for sovereign diplomatic immunity, which is pretty cool. Can you hear that? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you good now, Yosef. You're back to normal now.
Yeah.
Right when you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just put the blood of Christ on them, and we offer them a chance to move away freely and with love. And we understand that you're scared or that you have responsibilities you think about transparency, but they no longer apply. And so we just ease you out of our energy field, and we just let you pass at peace.
Yeah, so choose to live or die.
So yeah, they're not real happy with that one. So yeah, you can, if you want to do humanitarian work, you can qualify not only for diplomatic paperwork, passports, and other kind of little bonuses to being sovereign, but travel and different things like that. But you also qualify to manage your money on the trade platforms. It's the only way they can manage that kind of money. So when you go into a private placement program with your principal, which is how they're going to get you interest on your money, they're going to put your principal, your credits on these private placement programs and give you a small percentage of the return. Now, to you, it'll be enormous, but in reality, it'll be a fraction of what's actually made. And that's how they'll not only manage your money short term, but it's also how they'll manage your money long term. So they have to put your initial principal into sovereign accounting, into a sovereign trust, and thus, because your money's on that diplomatic kind of financial tier, so too will your family life, all of it. And when it passes down in trust, and your entire family will then qualify for that designation. Now, again, if you don't know it, it doesn't really mean much. But if you choose to evolve and become a world citizen and help the world, it's a really good designation to have. But you will be tremendously scrutinized for everything that you do. Everything. And rightfully so. Do no harm. It's a real thing.
Next one, Yosef.
Next question. Yep.
Other currency holders will be just transactional, nothing diplomatic per SE.
Right. So if you have VND or IQD, it'll just be a straight currency exchange. Now you can go into trust, but just understand that it's really the ZIM that takes people into a different stratosphere. And it's a ZIM because it's the entire African Union that's basically backstopping the new financial system. Even the global collateral accounts are a double kind of guarantor of the monetary system. The actual true first position monetary collateral is Africa, which I find ironic that the black race has been so persecuted over its entire history, and it's the race that ends up saving all the others. That really speaks to the sword putting away, doesn't it, Dr. WC? Better holster that thing. Anyway, next question.
Okay, yo, you can't even talk about no sword. You didn't see your last few posts.
Listen,
to the back of spit.
Well, that's a country son. That's not a person. This is a country.
Oh, but elders don't do it.
They don't. No, they don't chew tobacco and spit. No, they don't.
That was a sword.
I'm just here to make us laugh a little bit, make us cry, keep us entertained.
That's all I'm doing. It might hurt a little bit, but you can still cry.
I know. I'm just giving you the business. It's when I stop giving you the business is when, then we got an issue, right?
Hey, Peter cut off an ear and then Jesus put it right back on. We got the power to put it right back on.
There you go. I love it. Love it.
Bye. Go ahead and say this.
Go ahead, show me.
Okay, diplomatic sovereigns do receive greater inspection scrutiny with greater access to sovereign investment mechanisms.
Right, we just talked about that one, so we'll go to the next one.
Child support, back taxes, court settlements, and wage garnishment will be taken out of your exchange at your redemption appointment.
Yeah, Dr. WC brought something like this to my attention. I had heard this was going to happen, but I didn't really understand it until today. The basic premise is just because you have, debt relief globally, it doesn't mean that some of the personal failings or contracts that you've made that you haven't lived up to, disappear. And instead of the government paying for it or the banks, just basically writing a check to your spouse if you haven't paid child support, or your employer if you're getting your wages garnished, or whatever it is, back taxes or whatever it is, they're even though they're taking it out at the time of exchange, what they're doing is they're allowing your account, what you've generated or earned, to pay off your own debt. It's actually a benevolent act so that you can get the sensation of paying your debt. And also keeping which I found really interesting as it relates to some other things, it keeps a normal flow of transaction for people that have no idea that this is going on. So, for instance, if you owe $50,000 in back taxes, your account, out of your account, will pay that. They'll take it out right there out of your account, but transactionally, it'll show that you paid it. It won't show how you got the $50,000, but it'll show that you paid it. And whoever's looking at that in terms of the IRS collector, or if you owe your wife money and you have to pay the court, it'll show that you paid the debt, which will keep things normal, versus a Chinese elder paid your child support. That would raise too many red flags. So they're trying to keep things as normal as possible, and still, the child support's not going to go away just because there's an RV, right? People are still going to fail in their responsibilities to their kids, their families. People are still going to, not pay their taxes. I mean, there's a lot of things that are still going to happen. So you don't eliminate the structure. You actually keep everything the same. They just draw it out of your account. And this is what we mean by chalked, when they've chalked everybody. So anybody that has an outstanding, debt with a government facility or a bank, or something where somebody's taken you to court and there's a judgment against you, that will be on your record, and you'll have to settle that at the time of your exchange in order to move forward, which, will take 5 seconds, but ultimately it'll keep things normal, pay your debt, give you the sensation that you accomplished that, and also, keep the systems in place for after the RV, because those things are still going to occur in human interaction.
Yosef, have you heard anything about a student loan? How they
the student loans are
coming out in advance.
Student loans are a little different. Yeah, that's not a court judgment, right? That's a private contract that you enter in with the government or the bank. So the government, if they cancel their debt, that's the government's decision. That's not a private contract. It depends where you got your student loan from. So government student loan will be canceled. But if you took $30,000 from your uncle to pay for your med school, you're still going to owe your uncle $30,000. That doesn't go away. So it's kind of where you're getting it from. Or if you've got a bank debt potentially. Like mortgages are going to go away, right? So, but that's institutional. That's not private. In the bigger, grander scope of things, it'll really depend.
Now, in the beginning, they stated that every loan that you have received from a banking industry, you will receive under Nassar, you will receive $1 million per bank loan, car, automobile, I should say, or house or whatever. Is that still so?
Well, we heard the $1 million is coming out, right? We had heard it. So
yeah, we've heard it, but is that part of from the houses those bank loans, or was that from the prosperity program?
Here's the thing: the people that are exchanging currencies are ahead of the game, right? So,
right.
So they'll probably get their $1 million with their exchange. At least that's what we've heard. And they'll throw it in with the rest, but ultimately they still do it because they're a human being on the planet, and everybody's going to get a certain amount. But that $1 million should pay off everybody's debt, really, when you think about it. Nobody should have incurred that much debt. So, does that constitute debt relief, or does that constitute, a one-time payment for Jasara? What is that exactly? How does that quantify?
You know what? They're probably letting people know, but they're so overwhelmed with everything else is not dawning on them. It's just so much to take in.
The bankers are just giving it because they're told to give it. They don't really understand the international law that goes with it. It's certainly not the galactic law that goes with it. Now, what I find really interesting is the people that aren't currency exchanging, they're still going to have to get their money.
Right.
So after the GCRV kind of rolls out and completes, okay, now if you're in Baltimore and you have no idea this is going on and you're going to get hit with this kind of money, how are they going to deliver that?
It depends. It depends on where it's coming from. If it's coming through the
where's it coming from?
If it's coming through the prosperity packages or prosperity programs, what are you asking?
No, I'm not asking what accounts it's coming from. What I'm saying is whatever account it's coming from, how are they physically going to deliver it and communicate it to the people in a rational way? I'll give you a perfect example, Dr. WC.
Okay, then I'm answering.
Okay, go ahead. Well, answer it, and then I'll give you the example. I may not need it.
You see that you took those words from me. Say it again. How are they going to deliver it? Is that what your question
how are
was?
they? Yeah, regardless of the
account.
I know
what the answer is. Okay. In the beginning, we were told that they were going to give 40 to 80 weeks, 2 weeks of educational process. They're supposed to take over the airways and just educate people on, like, for those that have been foreclosed on, for those that have been what to do, how to get their student loans done. I mean, just pure education on where this money is coming from and all of that. They're supposed to take over the internet, the TVs, and everything. Now, I don't know if that's still in play or not, but that was part of the plan in the beginning.
Okay. All right.
To explain to people. They want to educate them, So I don't know if that's still in plan or not.
So what then, we can assume that if you're getting your $1 million with your currency exchange and you throw it in with the rest, what they're assuming is you've already educated yourself enough to be in a position to benefit from the RV. Right? So $1 million on top of your billions won't really mean much. So they can basically get 50 million people globally crossed off the list, before they have to do any of that. So that makes sense. I'll buy that. But how many weeks was that, did you say?
It started out being 40 hours, and then that was in 2010. In 2013, it was raised to 80 hours because of the amount of people after so much time were still asleep. So I don't know if it's still 80 hours or not, but they're supposed to, whatever you look at, they're supposed to take over the phones, the TVs, all the airways, internet. Whenever you log on, it's just the educational stuff running more and more and more. And so until everybody got it. Not that you can't dial out on your phone, but when you go to surf, that's all you see. So, they were going to bombard the airways with this educational information. Now, we would have to ask Fisher if that's still part of the plan or not.
Okay. All right. Well, that's more of a Fisher question than a Yosef question. I just hope they don't run, reruns, for 40 hours a week, like Good Times or What's Happening? Or
no, it's not going to be any of that. It's going to be strictly what's going on. None of that stuff on all the channels, no matter where you turn.
Okay. All right. Well, there it is. So, next question, or next bullet point. Show me.
Okay. The next one is, if there's an active warrant for your arrest, you will be taken into custody and processed.
Yeah, there's going to be some people going in thinking they're going to be rich, and either they don't know there's a warrant for their arrest, or they think that it's not going to be showing up on a banking screen. And what we've learned is that they're running everybody through Homeland Security, as they exchange or before they exchange, and they'll be waiting for people that have active, criminal arrest warrants out for them. So, not to fear.
Now,
not,
I have
not
a
to worry.
question concerning that. If you have the answer or not, I don't know, because one of the main things that they agreed to with Nassara was non-violent criminals would be released. So if those people that they are arresting don't have violent crimes, once they process them, are they going to release them, or are they going to put them into the population? Do you have any insight on that?
I don't, because I didn't really ask that question. What I asked was, what's Homeland Security's participation in all of this? And they're basically there to keep everybody safe from violent criminals. So I that might be right, but all I know is if there's an active warrant out for an arrest, don't go and exchange. It's going to be hard for people not to walk in and exchange. I mean, it's going to be very difficult. Plus, even if you exchange and you somehow get through it, then they can track you to where you are and your current phone, your current address, your current email. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to track you down if you're trying to stay off the grid. Now, I'm not advocating crime in any way. I just letting people know that that's what Homeland Security is there. It's to secure you. So they're going to run background checks before you even show up at the exchange center, and they're going to know what your history is. And not only are they going to know what your financial history is, but they're going to know what your criminal history is.
And that may be a good thing for those people. Trying to get underneath the grid. That's a good trap to get them on.
Can I share one really positive thought? We're all looking for good news. So, in my conversations with some of these people, they make some interesting observations, and one of the observations today was the elites have gained so much control, or had gained so much control of the world. They were in such, that it wasn't 1% of the world controlled 99. It was far, far less than 1% controlled the vast majority of the wealth of the planet, or thought they did, so it was taken away from them. But the point is, there were so few people that controlled so much, actually rounding all of them up, including their family lineages, wasn't that difficult, because there were so few of them, which I just thought was an interesting paradigm shift for me, because we've been sitting here, worried about the cabal this, the cabal that. They had the cabal identified, I think, very early on who was who in the zoo, and they were able to isolate each member and basically either cut deals or cut them loose permanently from the planet to keep the peace. So it kind of blew my mind that there were so few members of the cabal that they were able to identify and get on top of it very quickly and very easily. I mean, it took years, but it wasn't an insurmountable task of finding all the hidden little moles. What they had to wade out and wade through over the course of time was people that had become loyal to the cabal families that truly weren't born into the cabal. Because in the cabal families, you cannot progress unless you have a bloodline directly back to one of the 13, dark nobility families. I just thought that was an paradigm reversal. There's so many of us, so few of them. So few that if we really knew how few of them they were, we really wouldn't worry about their extermination.
Well, the programming makes you think there's so many of them.
Right.
That's part of the programming.
That's right. It's like, show me. He's got the world convinced he's got dance moves that he just doesn't have. He's got the white man's overbite, and that's about it. And maybe a little, he's got something with his hands, a little disco move, but that's about it, really. A hockey shuffle, something, but that's it. Sorry, Sean. Sorry.
That's all right. Next one.
I have less than you do. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Republic President Ryan will now step into his role now with Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse as VP. Why Sasse is doing a book and publicity tour suddenly.
Okay, his name is Sass, not Sassy.
Sass, oh. Okay.
But I'm sure all of his buddies call him Sassy.
Sassy, yeah.
And listen, I've been telling people that Paul Ryan was president for a long time, going back to 2016. In the summer of 2016, I started letting people know about that. I've taken a lot of heat for that, and it's going to prove out to be, spot on. But I want you guys to know that the only reason we knew about that is because somebody in our group had seen an actual document signed by Paul Ryan as commander-in-chief. And so when you actually see something like that, you realize he's president. And this was during the theoretical Obama presidency that ended in 2012 when the United States defaulted and there was no more U.S. incorporated. So, I didn't mean to be a jerk about it or to infuse my will upon people. I was just trying to get people information, and I kind of got pegged as the Paul Ryan, cheerleader, which it really wasn't a Republican or Democratic, pom-pom that I was throwing around. I was just trying to get people structurally what was going on, and it turned out much differently. Now, granted, they want a conservative, pro-life, fiscally sound, person running their new asset. This is China and Russia, and they chose, Ryan to do that. They gave him an interim period, and then coming, I think this July 4th is when they're supposed to fully inaugurate him as president, as the 46th president. So, send anybody, if you were liberal or Democratic or were an Obama fan or you liked Hillary Clinton or whatever it was. But it's my understanding that both Hillary Clinton and Trump were completely not only compromised, but they were sacrificed by the cabal for being patsies for the Russian and Chinese master plan to awaken the American population and also wait for the other countries within the Jassara framework to change out their governments and go through their normal election cycles, which went well past the November, second Tuesday in November 2016. And so we've been waiting on a lot of other countries to come into Jassara compliance. And ours technically did come in, on the 6th, actually, ours technically came back when they released John Boehner in September of 2015. So that's when we came out of international bankruptcy court, and they inserted Paul Ryan. He didn't really take the oath in front of the public until January 3rd when he was sworn in as Speaker of the House. But because there was no active president or vice president, he was also president. So everything that you're seeing with Trump and what you saw in the election with Clinton, all the leaks, and it's all scripted. It's 100% scripted. There's nothing organic that's coming out. we're desperately trying to figure out what the real timeline is and struggle with that because we're not privy to the plan. But there was no organic election. There was no, Trump didn't win the Republican nomination. Clinton didn't win the Democratic nomination. Those were all scripted storylines to keep people engaged, to reveal all the darkness and evil of both sides of that coin, to awaken the population so that they would regain their country, regain their desire to be politically active and aware of issues. And all of it has been a stage play, basically, that all the media basically agreed to do in order to keep their networks or to keep their jobs. And anybody that didn't was released. It just as Bill O'Reilly. So anybody that didn't play their part perfectly was let go, and everybody that did gets to continue on and have a life. And it's hard for good-natured people with sincere intent in their heart to hear that they've been not only made a fool by the cabal, for their whole lives, but until recently also made to be a fool by the new powers that be that are benevolently bringing in this transition. And the reason is not because they're trying to fool the 500 people on this call, but they're trying to make we'll call it in the United States, 330 million Americans not freak out that the changes are so drastic and that they've been, deceived their entire lives. They're trying to keep things normal and just do the transition slowly over time. But if you understand everything's scripted and you understand everything's coming from a benevolent place and you understand that it's all going to work out in the end, just like a movie where you know the ending, so you don't have to get as jazzed up in the middle when the hero's, stuck in a meat turbine and swimming with sharks and you never know how he's going to get out or if he's going to die, right? If you know he's going to make it to the end of the movie and he's going to get the girl and they're going to kiss and drive off into the sunset, if you know you're going to get your money and you know you're going to have good governance and you know you're going to have Jassar and you know you're going to have world peace, all these things, you can kind of calm yourself. And I've been no different than everybody else. I mean, I've been emotional about some things too that I've been very pissed they allowed it, more so than been fooled by it. I can't believe they would just perpetuate the lie. I can't believe it. They would have allowed the Trump horror to go on for, 5 months, but they did. Not only that, they let the whole election cycle go through a lot longer than 5 months. But the Trump presidency, actually technically it's the Trump presidency ever since he won in November, so it'll almost be a year by the time they get him removed here in the end of June. That was painful to know that wasn't real. See my wife crying, when Trump was elected president because of how disgusting he was to women, which we're going to get into why later. But you can't help it. You can't help people from feeling horrible. Even if you have the answers, you still can't help it. But they have to go through their process. They have to cleanse. They have to get the mud off of their skin. And this is the way the Chinese and Russians and the benevolent helpers that are guiding humanity decided to do it. Ouch. Ouch.
Next one.
Yeah.
Okay, Trump's attorneys will appear to settle with Special Prosecutor Bob Mueller in 2 weeks, but no, his resignation has already been turned in weeks early.
Well, technically it's already been turned in, but the whole stage play has been mapped out for years. Now, keep going. Show me next one.
Okay. Here we go.
Here we go.
I don't know if he phrases wrong, but I'll read it. And the real bombshell, Trump doesn't have male genitalia, but wife Melania does.
That's pretty self-explanatory.
Well,
When they were peeing on...
at least it matches up.
Well, this is why he only wants people close to him, you know, in his cabinet or White House or whatever, that he can trust, because they know the secret. Putin knows the secret. Chinese certainly know the secret. And Ryan knows the secret. I mean, everybody knows. And that's why they were sacrificed as patsy candidates, because the old power structure, they're worthless. It's a real tough one. I mean, the transgender thing, guys, you have to understand something. The way you advance in an occult family like the dark nobility, so in this whole crazy, maniacal, psychopathic world, is you literally surrender your kids and you change their sexes. You fracture them from their souls through body manipulation, and you alter what God had intended. That's the whole point of the Antichrist, is to alter the intent of God. And I just think, you know, if you understand that just as a basic principle of how they roll, and they sell their kids off. They sacrifice some of them too, but they sell them off to families to be raised by other families as the opposite sex in most cases. Dr. W tell me that most of the Victoria's Secret models were all transgender and were all males, not females.
Oh yeah, there's videos out there with them. Some of them confessing it.
So if you look at the arm, the muscle structure of Melania, the shoulders and the legs, and just her ability to keep weight off at that age, I mean, she's a man. She's a he. The flip of that, if you look at Donald Trump's body type into the 70s, is a woman. And I got that confirmed recently, and it just makes me want to vomit. You know, that not only did they perpetuate lies like this across the board, like Ariana Grande, the singer that was, just did the false flag in Manchester, that's a boy. Jennifer Aniston is a boy. I mean, we can go on and on. It's pretty freaky, but I'm just telling you, Trump is a woman. If you look at his body type, it's a woman with tremendous amounts of testosterone pumped into. That's why the fake male bravado of being the hypersexual, let's do business and break heads and skulls. I mean, that's why he doesn't exercise.
I hear you. I hear you, but I do have a question for you concerning this. Based on the fact that they have perpetrated these lies for the longest at this point,
right,
and the separation is being made, what difference does it make at this point?
It doesn't. If you know or don't know, it doesn't really matter. But I thought this was the real truth call, not.
No. I'm just wondering. Is it going to make a difference when it comes down to
No, it's not going to make a difference. But if you understand that that's how they roll with their own kids, that's how they buy and sell people. They clone people. They clone.
Besides the ones they steal. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I'm just offering insight into maybe why they have Trump, why Putin has Trump dead to rights, right? Or why China allowed Trump to be president for a period of time. And what Trump is as a clone, is attempting to hide, not knowing anything that's going. He has no clue on what's going on. None. He's only programmed for what he's supposed to do that day. And by the way, they just brought another clone of him out recently in Cincinnati. So that's why his skin color is so dark. It's to keep the aging in his female features lower. It's the pear shape of his body, even the flexibility of his golf swing. A 70-year-old man can't swing a golf club like that. Physically cannot. Doesn't have the dexterity. And I'm sending pictures out on the internet trying to hint at it, the crying game and all that stuff. But, like, it's hard. I mean, if you haven't studied, the methodologies of the dark nobility and just how deep the evil goes, and I'm not advocating anybody should, really. Just take my word for it. It's beyond your imagination. It's beyond your consciousness of what is even possible in the realm of evil. But then again, so is all of society. So, maybe that's why I'm so angry at times about this stuff, because I have a sense of it. I don't know all of it, but I should have a pretty good sense of it.
I got a sword you can borrow.
No, I don't. I don't need it. I don't. The pen's mightier than the sword anyway, right? So I got the pen. But, at the end of the day, I just really want to focus on serving and doing good and getting
so
with
one
many
of
people.
one of the people that's monitoring the call pushed me out of the call and put me in a subconscious when I said that. And I had to press star to get back in.
Just love on him. Just put the blood of Christ on him. Just love on him.
I put a golden sword on him. Okay, love of Christ, love of Christ.
All right, show me. Go for the next one. Is there a next one after that, or is that?
There's another one here.
No. It gets better. This is a good one. I got this one too. Go ahead.
Yeah. The hookers in Moscow were transgender. Females from he waist up, males from the waist down. Yeah. Females from the waist up, males from the waist down.
You notice how in the dossier, I don't know if anybody read the dossier that came out on BuzzFeed, that was the British, interpretation of what they had on Trump, which they have a lot more on him than that. But that's what they used, Supposedly that particular incident, or his fancy is transgender from the waist up a woman and the waist down a man. So imagine that jumping up and down on the bed and caught on videotape. It just gets weirder and weirder, folks. I mean, it's just, when you have absolute power and infinite money, this is what greed and sin and this is where your mind goes. When there's no control on any morality, this is the cloning and the killing and the eating of children and the sacrifices and the 9/11s. And I mean, this is where they go. And this is the war, by the way, that we were all fighting, whether we knew it or not. Deep in our hearts, we knew something wasn't right, and we had to do something. And the currencies, from a lot of people, while it started out as a transaction, became part of a larger transition from not God to God, or back to God.
That's why it's so important for people not to take authority and not fall into those same old traps. That's why the darkness has to be removed from this planet, so that they cannot keep repeating the same thing over and over.
Well, and they won't because it won't be here. But our responsibility as host RV recipients of the gift is really one of consciousness. And so, every time that we step into a financial situation where we have the opportunity to create change, you're not just doing it because you have the money in the accounts now. You're doing it because the society has been angled to destroy us. It's been angled to warp our minds. It's been angled to lead us off a cliff so that we can't fight back. And so our responsibility with the wealth is to restore not just the republic of our country, but restore the genetic cellular truth of our species.
That's right.
And this is what it means to return to Christ. It's the crystallization, the truth of at a cellular level of how God truly intended us. And intended us to eat, and intended us to educate ourselves, and intended us to travel, and intended us to use energy, and intended us to love on one another, and intended us to feed on one another, and house one another. I mean, like, it's everything. It's everything. And, if you want a sovereign rate, I was the one to tell you about it. But just understand that with that sovereign rate comes greater scrutiny because it comes with greater responsibility. Mm-hmm. You're not just your brother's keeper. You're every brother's keeper. Everyone. You really have a global responsibility to heal the world.
To whom much is given, much is required.
It's right there. Right there in print. So that's why I want you to know the parameters, because I can just see, I feel horrible. I've given some Zim to friends, lifetime friends I've grown up with, and I just know I've heard Yosef We okay now?
Yeah.
You remember that Miss Piggy in Space? Remember that on the Muppets? Got where I was going with that. That's what I was channeling.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where we were, but it's all good. It's all good.
To whom much is given, much is required. That's what we were.
Yeah. We're here to heal. We're here to heal each other. We're here to heal the earth. We're here to heal one another. We're here to heal. And taking on that kind of wealth and basically obligates you spiritually to a lifetime of service. I just can't make it any more plain than that. Now, before I ever got into the currencies, I had committed my life to service. So this isn't a stretch for me, and a lot of you out there, I'm sure, on your daily lives are already, committed to a life of service. But there's going to be some of the friends that I've given currency to that I thought I was giving a transaction at the time. When I gave them a Zim note, I'm now realizing I basically gave them a ticket to servitude to serve Christ. And a lot of them don't believe in Christ or don't have a good relationship with Christ or an aligned one. And I've tremendously burdened them, because if they go in and they take the bigger numbers, even if they just take the screen rate, which is over $8, what am I really offering them? I'm offering a complete change of their lives, their family's life, their kids' life, everything. But are they really ready for that? And I know that most of them that I gifted are not. They're not listening to this call tonight. They're not checking the blogs. They're not digging into their Bibles. They're not meditating. They're not praying. They're not surrendering. They're not trying to, release sins of the past or saying I'm sorry or doing any Pono techniques or, dropping alcohol, dropping drugs or pot, or, well, they should be picking up pot, but that's a whole other story. There's a lifetime commitment to service here. Now, I think all of us are on this call are very well aware of that and excited about that opportunity. But if you're just coming into it cold, having a Zim note and redeeming it and having an IQD and redeeming it are very different responsibilities as it relates to God. Very different.
So my question is, what persuaded you in your thought pattern to give them a Zim, give them Zim note?
Well, my thought was to
you
eliminate
wasn't thinking that at the moment?
When I first got into the Zim 3 years ago, I had been in the Admirals Group, and at the time, the Admirals Group was given a rate, get this, of .000000018. That was the rate. So every 100T note was $18 million. So when I gave them a 100T note, I thought I was giving them enough money to take care of their families, generations, retire, live in a nice house. But I didn't think I was burdening them to the point of, $8 face value, which at this point would be $800 trillion.
So do you think maybe once they receive that they will think differently? Their consciousness will be awakened to the point where they would want to move in a humanitarian type mindset?
I think some will surprise me. I do. I'm praying for all, but I'm accepting some. But I also think, sister, the opposite. Some people who think they're prepared are going to go for it, and spiritually they got some holes in their boat, and the water's going to find it and drown them. And that's why I've been so, preachy about this whole world, is because I've burdened a lot of my friends and family, and I was trying to direct them in a kind of an indirect way to what I was sharing intel-wise, but mixed in with spirit and, and a healing of their soul, of consciousness, elevating kind of work, because even if they take the money initially, they can't hold on to it long term because the vibration isn't a match for what they have to give away. It's like the tuning fork is mistuned. And unless I got them up to speed and got them into a tune where they could process the blessing, right, then they could hold on to it. But if I didn't and they took it, I would ultimately be hurting them. I mean, lifetime friends, family, hurting them. Because when I gave the Zim away, I thought it was a 50T note was $9 million and a 100T note was $18 million. I thought I was doing them a relatively dollar for dollar, accurate, good service.
What did you think about maybe pulling them to a special meeting and educating them, and if they didn't want to move forward in that capacity, trading it out for dinar, or do you think they're too greedy to make an exchange?
No, I think they're all going to exchange because I'm going to get them the 800 numbers. What they do with it is up to them. I'm just going to get it to them. But if they
then you can't feel guilty about giving it to them because you gave it from the depth of your heart with good intention.
Well, you're right. You're just right. But my natural servant mentality is I've mishandled the resource.
Well, you just got to ask God for forgiveness and move on because you can't hold on to it.
Well, what I think has happened, and just work with me on this, is they've accounted for that within the exchange process. So they're not going to talk about rate with people. They're not going to talk about money. They're going to just try and understand them at a human level. And if somebody that has been gifted one Zim note walks in and they don't understand what they're holding, it's probably safer, it's definitely safer not to tell them unless they ask.
Right.
So if what they'll say is, and it's my understanding the training has been like, well, what do you desire to accomplish with your exchange today, Mr. Show Me, Mrs. Dr. WC? Like, what do you want to accomplish? And if they lay out, I want to take care of my family and my generations and my neighborhoods and schools, and I really want to do things with the elderly and kids, well, they'll say, well, how much do you feel you need to accomplish that? And then what they'll do is they'll set up a long-term structured kind of situation that not only accomplishes that, but does it very handsomely, but nowhere near what the actual value is. And my prayer is that that's the way my people that I gifted will, in some ways, like they're so asleep. Have you ever heard of like people in car crashes? If you're awake in a car crash, it's actually more dangerous than if you're asleep in the back because you're more relaxed. And people that are asleep a lot of times live through car crashes. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I know some.
Okay. Well, I hope my heart now is that they're so asleep they sleep through it. And they walk in there with a 100T note and they ask for $18 million because that's what I thought it was worth back then, and that's all they take. And then if they need more to do other projects, then I'll have the ability to come in with more, digital cash and help them.
Well, it sounds like to me. Well, it sounds like to me, grace and mercy have kicked in.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing whenever you talk about. Yeah. So
it has.
You're still.
You're
good. You're good. So let it go.
But I undershot God. I way undershot God. I mean, I way undershot God. I got it completely wrong, actually.
Well, his ways are higher than ours. You know that. So.
Yeah.
His thoughts are higher than ours. So.
Yeah. It's just me wanting to control and manipulate the situation. It's me being.
Can't do that because he sees all. Right.
Yeah. So he'll take care of him. I mean, I pray for him. I just, I think I've done a pretty good job of trying to educate people on what this is and isn't, and what the parameters are, and what the responsibilities are. And if in my heart, that's why I'm posting so much here at the end, is because, I don't want to leave anything on the table with anybody that I've brought into a sovereign Zim. A lot of people have gone into Zim because of me. You know that Dinar Chronicles is now, is over 5 million people a week that look at that site now. So, and I saw the countries that we reach. It's like 42 countries, something like that. So you're talking about, a global ministry where if you're inaccurate with your comments and with your projections and with your understanding, you really have the ability to do great damage, versus if you are accurate, you have the ability to do great healing. And I'm here to heal. I'm not here to hurt. So I'm learning as I go too. I think the thing that everybody can take from my experience is the Yosef of the internet community was, I didn't really get into this to be a name brand. I got in this because I, like Christ, tipping tables, in the temple. I just was so disgusted with the greed that was going on in Denarland, I just couldn't take it anymore. And it launched me into this thing. And you guys are gonna see things that are in need, and the Lord's gonna just take you, and He's gonna move you into positions of power and voice, and He's going to activate your greatest good, and you're gonna drive issues. You're gonna move mountains. You're gonna raise the dead communities. You're gonna inspire people and give them hope and resource and life. And you better damn well be morally aligned. And the best example we've ever had on the planet is Christ. If you can find me a better one, please show me. I'm open. But to align yourself with Christ is to align yourself with God, in my understanding, in perfect harmony on earth as in heaven. And then your ministry is to go out and share the love and the perfection of God with others in whatever discipline that you are led to, whether it be kids or animals or environment or the elderly or the poor or cities or countries or water or whatever it is. You'll be led into that, and you will become a voice for millions. You'll all be Yosef. I guarantee it. You'll all be Yosef in your own way. So I hope you've learned not only from some successes that I've had along the way in terms of gaining popularity, but also the misses and the anger and the frustration and the pain that goes with leading. Because as you guys come into your own ministries, there's nobody to take the blows, and Dr. WC's been taking blows a lot longer than I've been taking blows, but you're the first one through the wall, and you get bloodied. And it hurts. And that's, if you really want to create change and you really want to restore the earth and you really want to heal the world, the soul of the world, you've got to be willing to engage in some suffering. You've got to. Just look at the life of Christ. Now you can transcend it and go far beyond it. Because if you look at Christ's life in totality, it's the only real way to understand, yeah, he was crucified, but that's not where it ended. That's really in some ways where it kind of began. So I'm encouraging everybody to feel the love of Christ and just accept it. Even if you don't quite understand it or it wasn't how you're raised or you think it's uber religious or Catholic or Christian or I don't care. I only care that you get across the bridge into the agape love and the unconditional truth of God as we exist in these bodies and on this planet. That's all I care about. I don't care what name you call it. I don't care how you pray. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your physical abilities are. I don't care how you dance. I don't care. What I care is that you remember that you are sacred and divine. And I care because the more people I can get to care, the more people you're going to get to care. And that's what ministry is seeing far beyond just the moment of your life and seeing it out in generations and out in eras and out in multiple dimensions and universes. And you understand that love is a ripple that has no end. And you guys really are such dramatic change agents of mercy. Yosef can't even put it into words. You are the way, the truth, and the light. And when you get lost or you get confused or you get scared, there's always a way back to the alignment of Christ. It's just a matter of surrender. If you perfect the ability to master surrender, you can always attain the wisdom and the vibration of the divine being, of the God mind.
Well, is that the end of your
Well, you got hookers that are different on the top floor than the bottom floor. I mean, that's probably it, don't you think?
I think that should be it. So I got one question before you get into the queue. I wanted to ask you was about what have you gathered or what have been told to you about the 800 number process being delivered to us, because I keep getting texts and emails. You know, is the process still the same where people cannot pass that number out, or will it be able to go out everywhere? That is the major question on the board tonight.
But
not
sister,
when will they come, or how will they be together.
Sister, we're talking about healing the soul of the world through the bridge of Christ.
I'm just telling you what I'm getting.
And just people just want their damn digits.
They want their digits so that they can heal.
No. The digits are not the healing. The second you have the digits,
I'm telling you what people are thinking.
I'm telling you, you'll realize once you have infinite wealth, you'll realize the actual value that you offer the world, that is offered through you, is actually your soul.
I've been preaching that forever. All this week, if you've listened, I've said that continuously. That is the main wealth of the earth, is our soul. And that's what the whole war is about. The soul of the human soul. The human soul. That's right.
Well, it's the divine spark. It's the God. It's the human soul that's part of the divine oversoul, and they're just so angry they're not blessed with it.
And the portion of God. That's right. The portion of God that's in each and every one of us. That is the true wealth of the world. However, people are still texting me and emailing me asking Joseph about the 800 numbers. So I'm asking.
Well, I always said that it would come out in segments, didn't I? Didn't I write posts on that and speak to that it would always come out in segments? And aren't we seeing that there have been segments that have been performing now? But even though they're performing, guys, that doesn't mean that they're cash liquid. It just means that they're getting a currency exchange and getting accounts. I have those accounts. Those aren't what you think they are. And while it's nice to go into an exchange center and convert, you're not really converting, because until they turn the entire system on at the T4 and T5 level, it's not really active. It just is zeros in an account that you can log into and see. So while the 800 numbers are fantastic, just know your life really isn't going to change exponentially until they actually release the system globally. And they release all those SKR accounts. So let's say the 800 numbers come out after. Show me, what's the last line in the post?
Oh, you can deliver?
Just one sec.
Show me.
I'll look it up. Yeah, I'm right here. Just one sec. Give me a sec here. The last line of the post, and away we go after the sun goes down on the West Coast Friday.
After the sun goes down on the West Coast on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I've been told, which would be Saturday, which would be the 10th, which I told you last week.
I keep telling people don't nobody know but God, because we've heard it so much, so just relax.
Well,
and wait.
People are actually going into exchange centers.
I know, but everybody still got to wait their turn.
Well, it's going in segments. They're chipping in at it a little bit by a little bit with different groups. But those are T4 groups. Those aren't T3 groups. Those are T4 groups. So they're really getting to the actual population. They're just nibbling at it. And the internet public is part of the nibble. So, yeah, Bruce will, I'm sure, get numbers from Wells Fargo, and I might get them from a different spot, and we'll be segmented out, and people that follow our blogs or calls or posts or whatever, they'll get to go in and do their business, and other people will get to go later potentially. It really depends. I don't know the schedule, and I don't much care. I've known for a long time that the Zim was going to redeem. I've known for 3 years the Zim was going to redeem. Never at the numbers and the way that we're going to end up doing it, but I've known. And I've shared that with you guys. Very transparent. I don't know that there's been a more transparent person in the internet community, the currency community, than me, to the detriment maybe of me getting additional information.
I agree. You,
but it always
and
comes
Fisher.
one way or the other. Yeah, well, even Fisher, though, it's funny because Fisher knows a lot more than me about some very important subjects, and he holds back, and I understand why he holds back. He doesn't have to, but he does. And I want to know what he knows. It infuriates me sometimes.
You can't.
But I get it. I get it. But that's a choice he's got to make, and and he's doing it in everybody's best interest. So I know that. I want to know. I want to know what I don't know.
And that can be a good thing, because there's so many people don't care what they don't know, and they don't try to find out. They just continuously on with the sleepwalking program.
But how am I going to make? How am I going to make good?
Want to know.
But how am I going to make good decisions? How are we going to make good decisions if we don't have all the information? That's the thing that really sticks in my craw, because I like to be prepared when I walk into a room, and I feel, especially when it comes to galactic, beings and their capacities and how we've been repressed and what our true potential is like, how can I make good decisions if I don't understand the parameters? You know?
Concerning that issue there, you have to go within, and God will have to reveal that.
Oh, trust me, I'm in. I go in all the time. I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been delivering. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, he will.
You know, I just have a real desire to know.
I know.
A, because it's interesting. B, I'm curious. And C, because it pisses me off that we have been that far repressed and that we are that divine. I mean, we couldn't be in more contrast with what we've been told that we are versus truly what we are.
That's right. Now
it just drives me bananas.
I know. You called it my sword. Not really a sword. It's just having the need, a desire within your heart to know, to really make sure everyone else knows. You just want
They don't have
to
to like it. They don't have to like it. They don't have to look at it long. They don't even have to consider it. But if they've not offered it, if nobody offers them the truth, where else are they going to get it?
Where
the hell else are they going to get it?
That's right.
And that's not just looking back at the cabal. It's looking forward into, multiple dimensions, multiple time frames, multiple technologies that transport us everywhere. Telepathy.
Real true.
Our hidden elements of sacred elements and skill sets. I mean, we have no idea what the capacity is of the human, experience. None.
And that's because we don't study and find out who God truly is. That's why we don't know the capacity. You have to know Him, know who He is, and what the capacity and how big He is to recognize who you are. Because you are a spark of Him. That's what your soul is. So when people don't want to face that, they have a fear of that. So they'd rather walk in darkness. Yeah.
Well, but
people have the tendency
they don't even know they're walking in darkness.